boom, boom. And here we are again. Our mission to have people tell us something good gets really, really good today. I'm super excited to have my friend, my ex-client, one of the tribe who played for the Miami Dolphins, as many as some other teams in the NFL. Welcome to the show, Jay Fiedler. And now is your chance to tell us something good.
Steve, great to see you here. And yes, we do go way back to my early days in Miami with the Miami Dolphins. And so happy to be on here on your show. Tell me something good with you. I'll tell you what, I am actually, we're kind of in this crazy world right now with, so much uncertainty going on. And I'm in a really unique position right now with my second career business to help families and help kids, really kind of venture out of this quarantine world. And I'm looking forward with still, have a little bit of uncertainty what's going to happen and if we'll be allowed to continue. But the trends are looking good and positive. That the Sports Academy at Brookwood Camps will be on this summer and offering kids a great respite from sitting at home with their family and doing online classes and everything. And summer camp is really something that kids look forward to anyway. But this year, I'm really hoping that the trends continue and we get to the far side of this curve quickly, and we could offer really a great place for kids to get outside, have fun, and bring back the community culture that everyone's craving right now.
So I remember when we first met, which was great. It was a wonderful time. The guys on that team were amazing. I just saw Coach Wanstadt recently. We did an event at the Super Bowl, which was great. But I knew you to be a real family guy. So for people who don't know the history of the camp, why don't you dive in a little, tell a little bit about the camp, about your relationship with your dad, who was just a super dude, and just share a little bit of what that history was.
Yeah, absolutely. My dad was, as you said, he was, the greatest person I knew. Obviously I'm a little bit biased, but if you talk to a lot of other people that have come across him, when he was alive, they'd say the same. And he grew up, in Brooklyn and ended up being a high school basketball coach and high school phys ed teacher for decades in New York City Board of Education. But every summer he would spend his summers at summer camp, and he worked his way up from being a counselor to head counselor, and ultimately ended up owning camps from the early 1970s all the way up through. And I've been fortunate enough to spend my summers going to summer camp and enjoying that time. And after my career as a NFL player, as a quarterback, it was a pleasure. It was a great opportunity for me to join the family business. And my brother and my dad were running the camp for a number of years. My brother Scott was a college basketball coach for about a decade after he graduated college, and then got into the business with my dad, and they ran it for about 15 more years, and I got involved about 7-8 years ago, and at that time my brother and I looked to really not repurpose, but reimagine what we're offering at summer camp. And we created a little bit of a niche in the industry by bringing together great instructors that only guys like myself as a former NFL player can deliver. Bringing guys, professional instructors, professional coaches to a summer camp experience, and really combining a great sports camp with tremendous instruction from top instructors around the world with a fun, outgoing, summer camp, traditional summer camp experience, where you have, you could go from, learning from an NFL player, learning from a former Major League Baseball coach. We have Leo Mazzoni,
Oh
former
my God, cool.
coach, comes up.
Rocking away.
You could do that in the morning, and then in the afternoon you go water skiing on the lake, and then later on you're hitting tennis balls. You go back and work with our instructors a little bit more, and then at nighttime have some fun. Social activities with the rest of the camp, and it's really a unique experience that we offer, and something that we're proud to deliver to youth from really around the world. We've been we have a majority of our kids from the Northeast, but we get a number from down your way in Florida.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
And then we also have a number of international campers from all over. From France, from Spain, Italy, Africa, China, South America, you name it.
So it's funny. I grew up in New York. I grew up in Baldwin, as you know, and so camp was like a big thing to me. My question to you guys: do you have color war? Is that
yes?
Is that
we
part?
Still, like I said, we run a traditional program, so we still do all that. We have the competitions. We have color war. We have your nighttime activities.
That's great.
The dating game, whatever canteen at night. We make it a lot of fun for the kids, but we also offer, the great sports instruction on top of that.
So I have unbelievable memories. I went to camp in upstate New York in Albany, and I went for 7 or 8 years. I moved to Florida just before I would have become a counselor, but I went to the same camp summer after summer after summer, and there's still some people that I'm friendly with that can only know those memories, which are really fantastic. So talk to us a little bit about like being an entrepreneur and taking what you learned from football to being an entrepreneur, because I happen to know some people who own camps. People don't realize you don't just show up in June and it's like,
well, it's funny. The year for us is kind of like a week of getting ready for a football game. When I was playing in the NFL, you go out in public and people think you just show up on Sundays and you put the pads on and everything's ready to go for you. They don't see the hours of work that goes into the preparation, to perform every Sunday for 3 hours, or every Monday night, or so, Thursday night, whatever it is nowadays. They play every single day, it seems. We spend 10 months to get ready for 2 months out of the summer, and whether it's going out and doing our sales, pitching families, generating leads, whether online, through word of mouth, through advertising. It's a real traditional business model. With the personal touch. Obviously, if you're sending a kid to summer camp, you want to trust those people that are going to be in charge of looking after your kids. So there's certainly a long sales process that goes into building trust with families and getting to know them, and getting to know the kids, getting to know the parents, and really nurturing those families along, to build that trust and make sure that they feel comfortable sending their kids in your care.
Well, if my memory serves me right, you were always a really good marketing guy. We did we did some fun stuff.
We had some good ones back then. Yes.
If it's okay for me to bring it up about your brother, when we did if you could talk about that, because that was still to this day probably the most fun endorsement deal I've ever done in my career.
I said, if only Champion Light turned out like vitamin water,
Can you imagine
doing this right now?
If only. That's right.
Oh man, yes, that was fantastic. You mentioned my brother, Anthony Mason, who he was a high school basketball player for my dad. And that's how I got to know Anthony. And my dad ended up becoming kind of a father figure, surrogate dad for him. He just grew up with his mom, grew up in the South and moved up to Queens. And it was him and his mom in the house. And my dad kind of took over, the role of father figure for him. And not only in high school, but then beyond as he went to college and through his pro NBA career. My dad was with him all the way, and he was he considered himself part of the family. So we used to always call each other brothers, and he'd call up my dad and say, and call him dad as well. So when I got down to Miami in 2000. It was, fortunate, he got traded down to the Miami Heat that same year. So, the two of us in the same city, in the same market, together, and both of us really, had a similar story and how we ended up getting our shot,
which is cool. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it took a long time to ultimately get my shot. I was undrafted free agent coming out of Dartmouth College, back up as a third string for a couple of years in Philly. I was out of the league for a couple of years, played out in Europe one season. I coached at Hofstra University for a couple of years before I got back in and finally, got a coach that would give me a shot. And it was a similar story for Anthony as well. He came out, he played in Venezuela, he played in Turkey, he played in Israel for, in the CBA, he played for 4, 5, 6 years before Pat Riley gave him his shot with the New York Knicks and then brought him down to Miami. So I remember going to those Miami Heat games
Wow, it
in
was fun.
2000, obviously, with Anthony there. It was fantastic. But you probably remember the Heat back then. They closed off the upper deck,
yeah, right.
Because they weren't getting any fans in the seats. So I, as the quarterback of the Dolphins, for me it was easy to call up, the people I knew. Margie Cates, who you probably
Margie
remember.
Cates. Wow, that's great. Yes.
She used to take care of all of us, and it would be easy. Call up, get my courtside seat, and then then a couple of years later they drafted D Wade, and Shaq came to town, and
the rest is history, right?
All of a sudden the seats got a little bit worse,
all the way up.
Yeah, exactly. But
so I think
again, it was fun. Just getting back to what we were talking about. Being there with Anthony and us being able to support each other in the same city. After having that relationship of being like family to each other, it was a lot of fun and it was great. For us to get involved with the Champion Light campaign and work on that and do the commercials together, and
that was so much fun.
Yeah,
when somebody told me, they go, "Why don't you get Anthony Mason involved?" And I go, "What are you talking about? Why would I get Anthony Mason involved?" He goes, "It's his brother." I go, "What are you talking about, man?" It was really cool. And but one of the things that I think is a great takeaway for people who are listening to this today is that there is no straight line to success. You got to be resilient. You got to be persistent. Yeah. You, Anthony, your whole family, that was your dad. Your dad was like a bulldog, so, taking no was never part of your makeup. And I think for people who are living through what they're living through now, it's a moment in time. It's a passage if you dwell on it and stay there and get stuck. So, I think you're a perfect example of how people go, "Oh, you were an NFL quarterback. Must have been a straight shot."
Well, for some it happens that way, but even the ones that are anointed, had to work to get there. Like you said, the journey to success, is really wrought with a lot of challenges and a lot of obstacles along the way, and usually no one sees that, because they don't notice you until you actually get your success. So people don't notice the path that you go on to get there and to ultimately get there. And like you said, my dad was a guy who was a tough coach, as a basketball coach, and he used to challenge people, and he was a master at getting people to learn from their experiences and learn from adversity and learn from challenges. And I grew up watching that, with his players and learning, just from that experience and going through my own challenges and my own experiences and, fighting through every step of the way, outworking other people to get your edge and end up on top. And, like you said, having that mentality that you could get through anything with the right persistence and the right attitude, will get us all through this time, right
Well
now.
said. Well said.
That's something that, all of us can really learn.
It's fantastic. Every time your name comes up, and recently it's come up a bunch with Brian Martin and Sam and the guys at One Huddle and
Yep.
Brian Levy, and literally every time, even here in Miami, when people talk back, think back about the Miami Dolphins, they have fond memories of you. And my favorite memory is the Sports Illustrated cover with you putting the ball over the goal line. So I will leave my audience with that. You
Absolutely, and if you remember, that game was the first game back after 9/11.
Oh my God, I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's unbelievable.
So again, that was kind of just another parallel of
wow.
The adversity that we go through and coming out on top on the other side.
Wow. It was so great to catch up with you. Please send me the information for the camp so that I can educate
Absolutely.
everybody. And if there's ever anything I can do, if I can get involved in the camp, if you want somebody to come up there and give some motivational speeches,
I'd love it. Yes, absolutely. Let's
guarantee.
Come on back up to New York.
Be awesome, man. You be well. Give everybody a virtual hug if you can, and I'll see you this summer.
Thank you, Steve. Always a pleasure.
Take care, brother. Yes, sir. Bye-bye.